Statistician General Resenga Maluleke has defended the methodology used to calculate South Africa's unemployment figures. This is after the Capitec CEO, clarifies, called on the government to rethink the unemployment statistics, suggesting that the figure could be at around 10% as it does not include the informal sector. For more on this, we are now joined by the Acting Deputy Director General at StatsSA, Molayi. Soli, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What does StatsSA make of the claim by the CEO of Capitec that the informal sector is not included in being part of the expanded definition of unemployment? Therefore, it could also mean that South Africa's unemployment stats could actually be at around 10%.
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers. Happy Youth Month to yourself and happy Youth Month to the viewers. I think, Aldrin, when we saw the article that was written regarding the unemployment rate in South Africa, I think as a National Statistical Agency, we thought that this is our responsibility to ensure that we assist the nation, the data users that are actually consuming our product, to make sure that they also understand how to interpret the data that we're producing. I mean, if you look at the numbers that we have already released around unemployment, we were saying unemployment is sitting around 2.9%. If, for argument's sake, we're saying now unemployment rate sitting at 10%, and I did my own analysis just to check how many people are we talking about who are unemployed if we're saying 10%, Aldrin. It means that we're talking about 2.5 million people. And I think if you look at that number, I don't think all of us will agree that is the true reflection. So looking at how we're conducting our surveys and also looking at how we're actually dealing with the concepts and definitions of the surveys that we are conducting, which is in this case is the quarterly labor force survey. It's in line with the international best practice, Aldrin. We are following what the guidelines that are coming from International Labor Organization, which is in this case is ILO, which is guiding us in terms of making sure that when we are producing our labor statistics, it's of the best quality. And we are confident that these numbers, they stand the test of time.
Yeah, the argument that is made is that the informal sector is not included in the matrix or the methodology that you use. Just explain to us, when we speak about employment or unemployment, how StatsSA goes about collecting the data and who StatsSA speaks to and whether the informal sector is also included.
Okay, let's start with the last part of your question. How do we select this household? In this case, we're selecting actually the dwelling units. So what we do, we have what we call it the sample frame, master sample frame, sampling framework, a frame that help us to identify dwelling units that we're supposed to be sampling. We are sampling on a quarterly basis around between 28,000 to 30,000 dwelling units. We go to the dwelling units, we administrate a questionnaire, which I already said that it's in line with the international best practice. And the definition that we're using for someone who's employed, if I may just give you a sense how the definition reads, it talks to someone who worked for a salary or a commission. It should be either running a business, big or small, own, or with more than one partner. So already there, Aldrin, you can see that we are already including those who are running business, whether it's small or big. It also goes back to say, even if you are absent from your job or from your business, we're still regarding you as somebody who's being employed. Again, we are also looking at the issue of informal sector, as the CEO was saying we are not. Informal sector, it is part of our instrument. We are measuring it. We are not only measuring even informal sector, we are also measuring formal sector, we are also measuring agriculture, we are also measuring private household. So it is not true to say that we are not including informal sector in our analysis, especially considering that the instrument that we are using, again, is the instrument that is of international best practice.
Yeah, in the Business Day article, he says that that Mexico, where Capitec has exposure through its investment, Avifin, has a low unemployment, and that is because they have embraced the informal sector. To me, it almost sounds as though that there is data that Mr. Fourie could have, or Capitec has, at its disposal, also considering the market or the clientele that Capitec is targeting. Could there be a discussion, do you think, that could take place between StatsSA as well as Capitec to look at what data they are relying on?
And maybe, Alden, before I answer your question, maybe just to add, to indicate to the viewers that actually we're measuring it, and we even go deeper, Alden. So we do have a module where we are looking at those who indicated that they have businesses, just to get an understanding more in terms of what type of businesses and also profiling them. The report, it's on the public domain, and I think maybe at some point we may discuss it. We just released it around March. And this look at this, it's a survey of employers and self-employed. So it gives you a sense of those who regard themselves as employed and those who are actually employing within those small businesses. And it's a very fascinating report that probably the viewers can also, it's in or available on our website. Going to your question, yes, indeed, we will engage with the CEO. SG has already said that he really wants to have a discussion so that we can understand where he's coming from. We really appreciate all the stakeholders, including the Gogos who are from the rural areas, who are actually even asking us questions in terms of how do you select this particular household. We engage with them, Adrian, and we want to also make sure that they are also being regarded as the key stakeholders in this discussion. We will definitely want to sit down with the CEO of Capitec and then try to understand where these numbers and how he came up with the 10%, because I, as a statistician, I'm quite fascinated by how he actually calculating the 10%. And then I think lastly, from our side, it's a question of probably we will have to look at, maybe let's have a discussion before the national dialogue, where we're saying, so as South Africa, we really need to have a register, an informal business register, that's going to help us to complement the data that is coming from the survey. And Aldrin, this database, it will help us, not only as local municipalities, provincial and national. And I'm happy that there is a policy, a national business licensing policy that I think it was published for comments. This policy is going to help us because as we are issuing licenses from the National Statistical Agency, we will be able to mine that data, complement it with the survey that is coming from the quarterly labor force survey. And I think that is the discussion that we're supposed to have, rather than having a discussion that says labor force survey doesn't capture informal sector.
Yeah, and I think while we're at this, maybe this could be an opportunity as well to explain the 32.9% unemployment rate vis-a-vis the 43.1% expanded definition of unemployment, and why, I don't know if you'd be able to speak to that, but in terms of government policy, why the focus is on the 32.9% as the official unemployment rate instead of the expanded definition, which is much higher, of course, at 43.1%.
Yes, definitely. The official unemployment rate, it is an indicator that we are tracking because it is in our national development plan. So if you read our national development plan, you'll see that the number that is, the indicator that is reflected in that plan, it is the official unemployment rate. But us as a National Statistical Agency, we are also providing what we call it an expanded unemployment rate, where we are also adding the discouraged job seekers and also those who said they didn't look for a job for other reasons, rather than discouraged. And that is where now the unemployment rate increased from 32.9%, that when you're including the discouraged. So that's the reason why we publishing both. One is for the government so that we can able to track where we are in terms of the national development plan. And then the expanded one is to take into account those who are discouraged so that you have a better understanding of what is the impact of taking into account the discouraged job seekers.
Yeah, and with the discouraged job seekers, would that include a cohort of individuals who may be of sane mind, capable body as well, of the age of employment, but the person, because they have a source of income, doesn't necessarily want a job or to start a business?
So they discourages those who are saying to us, if the job is available, I will take it. But I'm not actively looking for it because I'm discouraged to look for a job. And we do have a group that we call it not economical active. So in that group, not economical active, discouraged job seekers are part of it. Students are part of it. Also those who are ill or they don't, for other reasons, maybe, and even homemakers, including those who said they don't have money to look for a job. So they are not part of the labor force. Remember, labor force group, it includes those who are employed and those who are actively looking for a job, but they're unemployed. And if you are not actively looking for a job, you will be part of not economically active. And this is where the discouraged job seekers are, including the other persons who indicated either they're sick or they don't have money or they're students. That is why, Aldrin, when you look at our quarterly labor force, especially in quarter one, you will realize that unemployment rate over time is always going up. And one of the reasons is because the not economically active, which is mostly your students, cohort, they come out from school from the previous quarter four, which is your last quarter of the year, and your students who are coming from the technical and university who just graduated, they enter the labor force market, and that again it increased unemployment rate. So that is how we're doing the calculation, and it's a hierarchy. So you can't be employed and unemployed at the same time. So you have to belong in one group. Hence, I'm saying that when we sit down with the CEO, it will be very fascinating to understand how he do the calculation and how he sees these numbers.
All right. And then finally, the credibility of the data itself. StatsSA has come under attack for this, especially with the last census. But quite recently now, I think it was sometime last week, the Statistician General revealing that over the past 3 years, StatsSA has had a budget cut of around 40%. At the same time, you have a 22% vacancy. What does this mean for the work that you are doing, and also trying to ensure that the credibility of the data that you share with the country is that people can actually say that it's something that you can rely on?
Let me first assure the nation and the viewers that we are solid in terms of the methods. I think for us, even though we are experiencing financial constraint, even though we are experiencing our human resource constraint, we are quite solid. I think I really speak on behalf of the colleagues who are actually even now, they're helping us to finalize the quarter two of labor force survey because we have to release it. And I really applaud them because it is a quite challenging, especially in this winter. And we definitely are on the ground making sure that we collect these numbers. Us who are based in head office, we are also making sure that as we are analyzing this data, firstly, we're using international best practice. Secondly, we are also making sure that we adhere to our act, our statistical act, which is a guiding Bible for us to make sure that we are always producing good official statistics. The third layer of quality is that we do have what we call it a statistical council. This is an independent body that is overseeing the official statistics in South Africa with the view of helping StatsSA to ensure that our methods, the product that we're producing, are still in line. So, Aldrin, I can assure you and the viewers that as much as we are experiencing the budget cuts and as much as we don't have enough resources, some of us, including the colleagues who are in the provinces, we are willing to make sure that this country, indeed, they do have a good quality statistics, especially now that we're having now a date where we are going to discuss some of these critical issues at the national dialogue.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for your time. That is Molayi, who is the acting DDG for StatsSA.